Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Deffinition, and you're now locked into the channel where we break down all the latest movies, new game releases, TV shows and comic books. This episode we're going to be going over everything that you need to know about The King on Netflix, as well as its twist ending and the real life story behind it. Throughout this video we'll be discussing the haircuts, history and our general thoughts on the film. Now there will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to watch the movie yet and don't want to know what happens, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. With that out of the way, I just want to give a huge thank you for clicking this video. Now let's get into our breakdown of The King. It's the 1400s and we follow Henry, Prince of Wales, also known as Hal, throughout the majority of the story. Hal just wants to stay away as far from the trappings of royalty as possible, distant from his warmongering and paranoid father, Henry IV, who spends the majority of his life drinking. Henry calls for Hal, informing him that he will not be king, even though he is the eldest child, and instead his younger brother Thomas will be inheriting the role, and he informs Hal that his sibling wishes to fight and put an end to a rebellion. It looks like he's even more war hungry than Henry Sr. is, and this drives one of the big conflicts early on. There's a lot to take on board, and those who haven't got a PhD in history may get lost with the plot. However, here in England we have to learn all of this crap growing up, and what it basically boils down to, in my expert opinion, is a tale of someone who is forced to be a leader that doesn't want to lead. Thomas and Hal both go to fight the Hotspur rebellion, with the former feeling upstaged by the late arrival of his brother, who steals his glory, killing Hotspur with a blade, thus ending the fight before it even really begins. It's an awesome introduction that really elevates the movie early on, and this is a game of clones in all the right ways, with it mimicking some of the early production styles of the series to great effect. Hal tells his brother to bail on fighting people that dress up as Iron Man when he escaped the cave, but Thomas ignores this and is killed shortly after. Henry IV succumbs to old age at about 30, which was normal back then, and as Hal is the only surviving member of his lineage, he is pronounced king. Unlike his father though, Hal doesn't want to be paranoid and war hungry, constantly angry because his cousin didn't like his status, and instead he opts to be a beacon of peace and prosperity. This doesn't sit too well with others though, and as an insult, the King of France sends a ball, which, as we all know from our middle school history class, is worse than having someone say, "Doth thou wear those mother's drapes?" Whilst it would emasculate most, Hal sees it as a positive, confirming that he is doing the right thing, but old Frenchie won't stop, and apparently an assassin is sent by King Charles VI of France to kill Hal. Left with no choice, Hal decides to announce that they are going to war with the country, and they're gonna be heading off to France. Joined by William Gascoigne, his chief advisor, and Falstaff, they start to ride to war in the hopes of cementing Henry as a formidable king that deserves some respect. They arrive in the country and lay siege to the land, which is when the movie introduces its main antagonist, played by Robert Pattinson. He really knocks it out of the park and provides a complete polar opposite to the roles that the actor normally tends to play, making fun of just how big Hal's balls are. He also kills kids, cuts their heads off, looks like he's auditioning for a L'Oreal advert, and basically I don't know why Hal just didn't kill him early on. Hal's forces ride through the land and eventually come face to face with the French army, who by far outmatch them in numbers. Against most of his advisors, Hal decides that it's time to strike, and he says if it rains tonight, we fight tomorrow. This is because the king knows that the extra armour and horses that the French army carry will get stuck in the mud, which will allow their longbowmen to rain down on them. Before the battle, Hal goes to the Dauphin, challenging him to a one-on-one fight which will decide the outcome of the battle, saving countless lives. The Dauphin refuses, and he's not really doing much for the French coward stereotype, and thus the battle commences. I'm pretty sure no French people watch this channel, right? Can we just check? Yeah, we're fine. Hal delivers a roaring speech about England that will make any blue-blooded Brit shed a tear, and the battle begins. It's a great conflict that really feels like the highlight of the entire film, and it's clear that Netflix spared no expense with the reenactment. Watching a mass of soldiers march through the mud is brilliant, and it's rare to see a battle play out like this with such authenticity. The plan works too, and the English beat the soldiers, using their surroundings to their advantage. However, just as you think Falstaff is about to deliver Brexit, he is killed. Both Hal and the Dauphin enter the battle, with the former murdering many soldiers in an incredible one-shot fight that spans the field and sort of feels undertouched with an ounce of sadness as we watch him slowly turning into the man that he promised never to be. The battle ends with the Dauphin entering the conflict and constantly slipping in the mud, which really gives him a humiliating end. The guy looks like an absolute idiot, and it's an awesome way to show just how laughable of a leader that he was. Hal orders the prisoners to be murdered and slowly starts to succumb to the dark side. Wars make warriors, and there's a real hint here that Hal may be becoming a monster, which holds weight for the eventual end of the story. Following this major defeat of the French army, Hal travels deeper into the country with his forces and eventually comes face to face with King Charles VI, who surrenders and offers Hal his daughter's hand in marriage to unite their kingdom. Mr. Steal Your Daughter accepts and returns home with his new wife. Now this is where the big twist happens, and we're going to break down what it was about and the motivations behind it. Hal's new wife Catherine believes that Hal is a warmongering idiot, much like his father, and she refuses to submit to him, stating that he must earn her respect. She asks if he feels a sense of achievement and questions why he invaded France, which is when the big reveal happens. It turns out that the assassin earlier on in the movie that pretty much started the entire conflict was not sent by King Charles, and it was all a play by William Gascoigne to manipulate the king and get him to go to war. This is because William, due to the conflict, has gained a lot of new land which he's set to make a fortune off. Hal questions William on how he managed to capture the assassin, and the silver-tongued snake quickly contradicts himself, being unable to explain where or when or how he managed to find him. This pretty much confirms Hal's worst fears, and the king kills his servant after he exclaims that he has given him what he wanted, which is peace. Hal requests that Catherine always tells him the truth to avoid going to war once more, and thus the film ends, showing that though it looked like Hal was going to become his father, he has advisors around him that will stop this. Now in real life, this didn't happen the way that the film depicts it at all, with Gascoigne probably being removed from his post or resigning after the appointment of King Henry. The real Gascoigne died in 1419 and was buried in Yorkshire. However, we don't know all of this for certain, and there's a lot of accounts that contradict this, including Shakespeare's Henry IV Part 2, in which Henry V is crowned and he tells Gascoigne that he will continue to hold this post. This may have some actual historical basis, though it could also be like this movie and doing it for dramatic effect, but it may suggest that his resignation was voluntary. As for Henry, well, he died in 1422 at the age of 35 due to dysentery. Again though, this is completely up for debate, with some believing that it was due to heat stroke because he'd been riding in full armour the day before in blistering heat, and unfortunately the medical equipment that we have today didn't exist back then, so we have no way of knowing. Henry reigned for 9 years before his demise and named his son Henry VI the king. Henry was only a few months old at the time, but he did reign for 50 years, which was pretty much like being 100 back then. There's a lot of history to the family that we don't really have time to get into here, but it's definitely worth checking out, especially Henry VIII, who is pretty much a psychopath that had 6 wives, some of which he executed because blocking people on social media didn't exist back then. Overall though, I really enjoyed the film, and it's always great when historical epics like this remind us of the sort of lives that our ancestors used to lead. The film, though not perfect, is still a great addition to the Netflix platform, and in 4K Dolby Vision the movie really shines. As with most historical movies like this, the film is slightly lenient with the truth, and it changes many of the events in order to create a more engaging narrative. That's probably the only major downfall I can see people finding with The King, and it's really well acted and portrays the darker side of the monarchy and the way that they used to act, being above the law, allowed to murder people without trials, based purely on judgment. The King is a brilliant character study on a man becoming his own father, even though he tries his best not to, and whether he will or won't succumb to this is where the main drama comes from, and overall it's an enjoyable watch that I think many people will find fascinating. The King was great and it gets an 8 out of 10. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on The King, so make sure you leave your review of the movie in the comments section below. If you want to come chat to me after the video, then please follow me on Twitter at DeffinitionYT, or head over to my Discord server, which will be linked in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with all the latest videos on the channel, so hopefully I'll see you over there very soon. We're also giving away a free copy of the Marvel Phase 3 Part 1 box set on Blu-ray, which contains Civil War, Doctor Strange, Homecoming, Ragnarok and more, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts on The King in the comments section below. The winner is going to be chosen the 15th of November, and the set will be shipped out from then to whoever gets the prize, so best of luck to everyone who takes part. This is a channel for people who are mad into movies, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. I've been Deffinition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.